Hello, listeners. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dawn Weiss, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Mayweather Fitness Holdings and a seasoned franchise marketing expert with nearly 2 decades of experience propelling the growth of emerging brands to become sustainable, acclaimed brands within the consumer fitness, wellness, retail, and beauty sectors. In this episode, we talk a lot about what it means to be an executive and Dawn's journey and how she transitioned from having all the answers to having the right questions. So I really enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you do as well.
What does it truly mean to be a leader? Welcome to The Executive, a podcast that highlights the career journeys, struggles, successes, and day-to-day experiences of leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Ritter, bringing over 10 years of experience as a leadership and career coach, L&D consultant, and healthcare executive. My mission is to guide leaders towards creating a career they can love. Thank you for listening. Now let's hear from the executive.
That's just sort of where I've always been in my career, is I like those brands that are right on the verge of something really great. That's sort of my strength. I think that I've always looked at these bigger brands and there's opportunity that's presented to me, but I get excited about this is what we have. We have like a paper clip, a piece of gum, and like a shoelace. What can you do with it? Yeah. And you're like, I can make something. It can be something else, right? What can we do with it? So it's exciting when you're at that growth period, but it's a lot. It's a lot. You have to have a good imagination and a willingness to, squeeze something out of something that maybe isn't there, right?
Yeah, I think this is gold, so I'm just rolling with this right now, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
When did you figure that out? That whole, I like these like brands on the edge of growth.
So I think, let's see, at Massage Envy, we went from 33 locations open and 83 sold to over 700 open and 800 sold in 6 years. And when I left there, we did it again with 3,000% growth in another brand within like a 3-year period. And then I just felt like I was good at it because I had done it a few times, right? We had success. Nothing was really broken. Things were good. People liked us. Consumers were buying from us. Franchisees were reasonably great people. And it seemed like I might have like a thing for this. Like, this is what I like. And then to be honest with you, I've gone in and I started to consult. When I left my job at the Joint, I started to consult and I built my own business to consult with and be an advisor for companies for a short period of time, about a year. And I didn't have my hands in everything. And some of those brands were more established and they really needed to be unwound a little bit and take some steps back. And their foundation wasn't as strong. And I felt like if I could only be there at the beginning, I could have really helped these guys, because some of those issues that they had were not fixable. They weren't fixable. Not the way that they wanted to, and maybe not the way they had the budget to, or the time, or the effort, or the wherewithal, or the support from the investors to. Then I realized, like, but you could have done it this way. And then that's when I think that grew inside me, that like, I could fix this, but if I only could go back in time. And what I love is when somebody's like, I have an idea. And I'm like, I have an idea, right? Like, what's their idea, right? How can we bring it to market? What can you do? And I love that building. It's like nurturing like a baby. I'll tell you a quick story. I have 2 boys right now, a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. And when they were babies, a girlfriend of mine, when they're like about 3 or 4 years old, my older one was 3 or 4, she said to me, I don't really like the baby stage and I can't wait until we're out of this. And I was like, I love this stage. Like, I love it. I'm going to miss it. And she said, oh no, you're going to like, when they can do their own stuff, you're going to like that. And an older mother with older kids was like, she's right. Nobody likes this stuff. You don't get sleep. You're covered in baby food, right? I'm like, and I was climbing on slides and I was doing stuff. And I like that nurture period. I like knowing that they're sponges and I can imprint on, and we have an opportunity to grow together, but not for the reasons that you would think, because I'm all powerful and they look up to me, because they don't at that time. They don't really care. They're just following you. But I like that I don't know and I don't see what they see with fresh eyes. And that's what I love about the brand building, is you look at it with fresh eyes. It's maybe most of my career has been disruptive brands. Not until I was in fitness was it not so disruptive anymore. But that, to me, that newness of that opportunity, that blue ocean, that if you can dream it, you can become it. I love that stuff. So I think that to me has always called to me once I figured out like that was something I could do. And honestly, it just came from a place of, if I could do it and I'm pretty darn good at it, then maybe I owe it to people to do it. Right. And I feel like to me, that's divine, right? It's my purpose. So I think that kind of keeps me going, if that makes sense.
So you had this kind of successful experience, kind of a really successful experience. You kind of you liked it at Massage Envy, and then you did it again at the Joint, and then you're just kind of like, I'm going to go do this as a consultant. And then you're like, oh, but I'm not getting all the things that I thought I was going to get from
I can't get my hands dirty. Yeah,
I couldn't get that baby phase. I was like, no. You want the baby phase.
Yeah. And you're handing me an adolescent that's already not listening to anybody. I can't unwind this, right?
And it's so interesting. Did you know that you liked the baby phase before you kind of left? Like maybe did you have inklings before you ended up going on your own? Or did it really solidify after you experienced the adolescent when you think back?
Listen, at each of these brands, we've climbed the lists, the Inc. 500, the Franchise 500 list, the Entrepreneur. So when you do that, it feels good. And I think that I've always liked that, but I don't think I made the correlation that my strength is there. I've been offered other opportunities for bigger brands, and I'm always looking to the next opportunity is around like fixing a brand, because often when a brand needs like somebody who can turn it around, it's so very fragmented and broken, and either they're so desperate to figure it out that you can rebuild it. So interestingly, my skill set sort of correlates and my desire correlated into that area too. But the newness of and the brand and it's hard. I've just had this conversation with someone recently. At Xponential Fitness, there were multiple brands that I got to oversee either simultaneously or at different times in my tenure. And I was so fortunate to be part of. But it was interesting because we did well, right? It's never me alone, right? I had that success there. It was a huge team of people that were working super hard, but I got to drive the marketing piece, which I was loved. But at these brands I get into, I was able to go in and build a brand during the pandemic, the brand was already built to help build CycleBar further, had a great president there, and great support in the COO at that company. And so I felt really invigorated to do great work because it was pandemic and things we weren't falling apart, but nobody in the world, let alone in the industry, knew what was going to come post-pandemic of fitness in closed environments where people are breathing on each other, right? And there were so many regulations and restrictions. And so I saw an opportunity there to be part of something and to build it. And then they said, hey, we could use you at another brand that really needs some help. And I was like, but I just built the team here. And we just built some new things. And we added to something that was already great, but made it even better. And I felt so proud of it. And I felt top of the heap. And then it was like, hey, do this. And I was back at the bottom. And I wasn't, because they were like, look, we entrust you. And there's such a huge responsibility. And I feel so grateful for it. On the other hand, you start back at the bottom and they're like, here's the gum and the shoestring and the paperclip, right? And I'm like, wait, I know these things, right? And so you piece it together and you're like, for me, it's a challenge. Can I do it faster? Can I do it better? Can I see it with new eyes? Can I see it from the vantage point of the people who have been in it and who have said, we don't know what we did wrong, but we hit that wall. And so don't go that way, right? Don't go that way. There's always new paths to forge ahead. And so I think that that's always really been appealing too. If that makes sense.
It's kind of like your superpower. When I see you, I'm going to give you a paperclip and some gum and some shoestrings. So we can do with it.
That's what I should do. I should frame it on my wall. Yeah.
So you've kind of have this knack for taking something that's nothing, a baby, and bringing it into something magical, and you also doing it in a state of ambiguity. I mean, talk about working in COVID. I can't even imagine fitness. And I was really. Have you noticed anything unique or specific about what really works from a leadership perspective? Because you are in these industries as the CMO. You are the top marketing, expert. What has worked, and maybe what surprisingly didn't work in your experience?
Yeah, from a leadership perspective, I can tell you the promise that I make to people when I come to a brand, because at this stage, I have a lot of experience because I'm old. I'm older. And so I'm comfortably in my 50s. And so, I get to the point where people expect that I've done it multiple times and I'm just going to do it again magically. And I have a wand, and it's not how it works. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's choosing the right team. It's hiring people that are smarter than me. That's really important to my success. I can't know everything, but I have done all the jobs in a marketing department. I have sat in those seats, so I know what things to look for in somebody who can do it full time and better, and for what that specific company needs at the time. And I can tell you that people expect me to have the answers. And so the commitment I make to people, to the franchise owners and to the franchisors, is I don't have all the answers always. I know that can be disappointing to hear, but I have all the questions. Right at this point, I have all the questions. That's my job. My job is to ask the questions and to know what rocks to unturn, to understand the data, past the data, look past the data, have the conversations, ask the questions nobody else is asking, or maybe they've asked, but I have to ask them differently in order to get the right answer. And then to know what to do with those answers, that's different, right? I don't just know. I don't just show up knowing. So it's exploration. And so what I've learned is that it is easy to believe your own BS and to show up and be like, I know this, I can fix this. I do this all the time. Give me the shoelace, right? But I learned very quickly that I don't have all the answers, even though I've done it multiple times. Every single brand, just like every single child, right, has a different personality, has a different need, has a different trauma, right? Something else that's kind of gotten them where they are. And so my leadership style is really, especially in franchising, has developed over time to be servant leadership. And I'll tell you a quick story about when I first got to Massage Envy. My boss told me, no is a complete sentence with a beginning and an end. Your job is to keep them on brand. My title there was brand continuity director. It was sort of ambiguous. My job was to keep them on brand. We were going to build a brand. We were going to scale a brand. We were going to exit the brand, right? We were going to sell it for lots of money. It was going to be successful. And in order to do that, really, it was, this is the plan. Work the plan works, right? So that was my mindset, was no as a complete sentence. It's not really what I believed, but I did believe that we had to stay within a brand guidelines. And I was like, brand guideline girl, right? You have to do it this way. You have to do it this way. It can only be this way. We're super rigid, but look, it's been successful 100 times. It'll be successful 700 times more. Please just stay the path. And every time they got off the path, you just nudge them back on. And I got comfortable with that. That's the second job. I decided that no didn't win me a lot of friends. We had a lot of the same franchise owners from Massage Envy that came over to the Joint. No wasn't the answer. These are people who invested their hard-earned money and put their trust in us. And some of them had already owned Massage Envy and then came over to the Joint. They don't want to hear no. They're sick of no, and they were sick of hearing it from me and everybody else. They were successful, and their success and our success had as much to do with them and their work and their commitment to the brand as it did my seat or anybody else around me. And then it became, this is a partnership. And it isn't no, it's yes, you can do that, but let's talk about how we can do that together. So yes, no, you can't turn the logo pink tomorrow, right? But yes, we can support breast cancer awareness. Let's do it in a way that makes sense for this brand, right? And so over time, I've really become focused on servant leadership, because in franchising, that's really the job. The job is, my ideas are of no value to anybody and don't further a brand's success unless a franchisee believes it and is willing to spend their money on it and does the work, because I can't do it for them, not locally, not all of it. I try to take some of it off their plate where we can and fund that for franchisees when we are able. But they still have to locally do some of that work, right? So that's servant leadership. It's understanding that I work for them for the greater good of, and it's not about power, because in that scenario, we all lose, right? I don't become successful unless they're successful. And so I've really leaned towards going from, I know it all, and this is the way, and this is the path, and this is the book, and this is, I told some guy, I said, you see page 37? That's your signature. That's not my signature. You agreed to do it our way, right? So now instead of it's a recipe, right? Take the recipe, eat the recipe, you love the recipe, you bought the recipe, stop bitching to me about it, right? It became more a matter of, this is a recipe. You can add a little bit more salt or a little bit more pepper, but understand that if you replace the salt with sugar, the outcome is very different. This is not the same recipe anymore. And then I can't guarantee, not that I can guarantee anybody's success, but I am sure that I can't really help as easily or as readily if you're changing, right, the core mechanism of the ingredients, right, or the recipe. And then I think that that's really how it's changed over time. Humility is definitely what's changed.
It's interesting with the franchisees. They have like their own career development path to grow, to make some more money, which is, if you follow this rule book and this playbook that we have, then it's kind of, hopefully you get there. We're there to help create that for you. As an employee in an organization, sometimes that rule book isn't as explicit. And either way, though, there still is one there. And as that leader, if you keep in mind that individual is the person that you're serving and that you're helping them reach their goals, then a lot of good can come from that. And I love what you said about, I used to have all the answers, or I thought I did. And now I just make sure that I have all the questions. And if I can have all the questions, then I can guide that individual towards their goals, but also in alignment with our goals, and the best way to help them become successful.
Yeah, no great scientific discovery ever came from somebody without a question, right? You have to know, and you have to start to ask the questions. Does this need to be fixed? Where is there a cure? Is there a solution for how is this actually happening? And then you form your thesis, right? And so I feel like that was the biggest shift, right? I did believe, you do believe, right? As a leader, especially as they start to add bigger titles before your name or after your name, you start to think about you were hired to know the answer. It's easy to believe that you're supposed to just show up and know everything, right? Like, they paid me to know everything. And the truth is, they paid me to figure it out. I don't know an employer that was like, we paid you to know that. I've always been fortunate to be around people who are like, we paid you to figure that out, right? That's not our problem. That's your problem, right? But that's the job, it's your job to figure it out. And I think that when you make that switch as a leader, it's very powerful, because there is a lot of stress in leading a team, an organization, a franchisee down a really dark path during the pandemic. That was not an easy time for anybody. Nobody knew what was going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. And I used to joke early on that, like, let me go check my crystal ball, right? What is a crystal ball? It's anybody's guess. And so you have to start to get really good at guessing. And it's a little bit of, what does your gut say? And you have to learn to trust your gut. But again, I think that, just leadership comes from a place of, right, understanding that leaders aren't intended to have the answers either. It's also just about getting the answers out of everybody else, right? A leader guides people and helps them to find the answers and listens to the answers they provide, and then filters out the answers that are going to get us to the solution that we seek, right, as leaders. And I think that that's important too. That's, at least from my path, what I've learned.
Some people might be listening to this and they're saying, yes, that's a big shift. I don't need the answers. So that's a big load off. But wait a second, I still need to figure it out. That's also a lot of stress.
Yeah.
How then have you learned to, it actually sounds like it motivates you and energizes you, but how do you deal with that stress and responsibility?
Yeah, look, it's tough. There are a lot of sleepless nights, especially if you're dealing with a franchise owner who just won't do it the way that you want them to do it and the way you know that they're going to be success. I've had people challenge me. I had somebody challenge me the other day. That's great. I don't show up to these calls all the time because I don't want you to tell me what to do. And you're like, but you signed an agreement that says that you're going to, right? That first employee that I was is saying that on one ear, and the other is, this is a man who has invested his life savings and believes he's doing the right thing. He's been successful doing this before. and he believes he will be again, but you know better. And so you're going to either have to listen and meet him halfway. And so what I've developed is transparency of like a level that most people, I don't know if it makes them comfortable, to be honest with you. I just tell it like it is. And I say, listen, I don't have a great short-term memory. So if I lie to you, I'm probably not going to remember. I'm not great at lying anyway, but if I tell you some fabricated story, that's not going to get us anywhere. And the truth is that I'm comfortable telling you what I know, and either I'm right or I'm wrong, but I'm going to tell you because I think you need to hear it. And so that transparency is something that I brought up, but the stress of, did I make the right decision? Did I say the right thing? Did I say too much? Did I blurt something out? Is that person really going to listen? Are they going to do what I told them to? Are they maybe right and maybe we're wrong? Are we willing to try it a different way? That keeps me up at night. I mean, I sleep like 4 hours a day and I'm like, staring at the ceiling, right? The list is on the back of my eyelids of all the things that we could do differently. What I try to commit to is I am paid and I am entrusted to do things that drive a company's growth forward. And all I can do is what I have access to the best of my ability, and to be as strong representation of what I believe is best to do and focus on showing them the path. Illuminate the path. If they take the path, they take the path. If they don't, I'm going to be stressed about it. I'm going to lose sleep. Sometimes they find their way back on the path because they went off into the woods, right? And then the big bad wolf came, right? And now we're back on the path. And we meet back up there, and there's no harm, no foul, because again, it's not my business. I have to remember it's not my business, and in franchising, that's tough to do, because I'm like, why would they do it? Why would they sign the agreement if they don't want to do it our way? Why won't they do what we're saying? We're the experts. We've done it so many times. Look at how many other locations. So the stress of that definitely still weighs on me, but I do believe that it's, truthfully, I believe when you get to this level, it's what you're paid for. Absorb it, deflect it, turn it, grab it, turn it into some other matter and hand it back, right? And I feel like doing that with positivity is important. I have to go to sleep at night knowing that I did everything that I could and nothing short. That's just who I am. But I think a strong leader, I think an effective leader realizes that your true job is to do everything that you can, hire the people who can do the things you cannot, and guide people who know the difference between the right things and the wrong things to do, right? Guide people with the best of your ability. And yeah, it's stressful, right? It's very stressful, but I do thrive on it because I know if I feel it and I'm passionate about it, then I'm doing the right work, at least for me, right? Hopefully the outcome is the same. And I build credibility and relationship with the franchisees that we guide. Because again, that's the only way we get any outcome, right? Any growth, any progress.
Well, what you're saying, and other people that have been on this podcast, other executives, that if you're going to be in this leadership role, you better expect to have some sleepless nights. You better expect to deal with a very high level of stress. And I'm sorry, audience members, but if you can't handle the stress of your current job, I highly recommend that you manage that prior to continuing to, strive for that next level. And I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, you've figured out a way to live a successful life and have a successful career in these levels because you've done it for a while, and you've learned to, maybe it sounds like, repackage the stress, reframe the stress, repurpose the stress, or learned how to enjoy it. But what do we say to individuals that might be really anxious with their current job, really stressed, and maybe even, and this is sad to hear, some people that are afraid of executive level roles, no matter how successful they are and how talented that they are, because they're not sure if they're going to be able to deal with what comes with the position, and that burden, the responsibility. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And honestly, when you're growing up and you're developing in your career, I don't think a lot of people realize some people don't want and don't aspire to like climb the ladder in their role. They're happy in the middle because they don't want the responsibility of overseeing somebody else, and they don't want the responsibility of other people's performance. I'm not on the hook for my performance. I'm on the hook for everybody else's performance. Why did that person not say that in the email? Why did that person run that promotion? Why did that not perform well? I can't touch everything. I review it. I sign off on it. I provide the strategy, provide the support. At the end of the day, I'm the person that's responsible. And I think that's really scary. I mean, why would that be? You're not just on the hook for your performance. But I have told a friend who was at the time that I was growing in my career, she was growing in hers, and we were right at the same pace. And she was given this huge opportunity working for a very large insurance company to run this entire portion of her organization. That was a huge opportunity. And she says, I don't want it. And I said, why were you afraid of? And she says, not that I'm afraid, I just don't want to do it. And I said, I think you're fearful of, and so let's talk through it. And she said, I'm fearful of the failure. I'm fearful of that. I'm fearful of that, because she felt more comfortable being judged only on her own performance. And I respect that. I'm just tuned differently. I'm like, everybody help on my shoulder. Let's go, right? And so if you're not like that, I think it's difficult. But here's what I've heard recently that I thought was interesting. I was watching this, I don't know, something came through my Instagram. I'm just going to be transparent with you. But they were talking about like, you're going to work maybe somewhere here when you're 15 to 20 years old, you're going to get your first job. You're going to work maybe until about 65 or so. And so maybe you live to 80 and right, you were born just 15 years to 20 years before you took your first job. And so maybe you've got 15 years on one end and maybe 15 to 20 on the other end. So for maybe 35 years of maybe 80 years of your life, you are working. So you better choose something that you love. And I feel very, very strongly about, there's the idea of like, choose something you love and you never work a day in your life. Okay, I work really hard and not all of this stuff comes easy for me. So I work hard at it. But I think that if you choose something that you love and leadership scares you, then I think there are plenty of opportunities and tools, right? Just like this, like a podcast like this. I was listening to some of your other ones about, where do you like search for answers, right? How do you know what's innate, right? Some people have it innate, but it's leadership is a learned skill. You can learn it. And I think a lot of people feel like they're not natural born leaders. I've been told for a long time that I'm a natural born leader. And just so you know, maybe people feel that way about me. That is a BS assumption, because I was a very quiet little girl sitting in the corner of a room, not applying myself to all the things that maybe mattered to me at the time, because they were scary. And I didn't see myself as smart. So I got good at something and I built on it and I got better at it and it mattered to me, and I learn and I seek out information, and I'm never going to have enough information. I want to learn all of it, right? But there's TED Talks. There are books written by people who have done that job or something that is similar to. They have looked down the barrel of that gun. They have looked up the ladder and seen how many rungs, and they've been just as scared. So I would encourage somebody who doesn't believe that they have that ability to seek out ways to learn each stepping stone to get to that ability, and to embrace it, to embrace discomfort. Nothing great happens without that discomfort, right? There's that adage, right? That as a diamond becomes a diamond, right? What happens, right, for it to become a diamond, right? It's pressure. And I think that that's something really important, right? For people to understand. And I think it's something to embrace. But yeah, some people are not going to do that and don't want to. But I think it's foolish, because I do think that the one purpose that we have, maybe even in the work world, if not your entire life, is to become everything that you're capable of being, right? And so I think that that's the test of anybody, is can you be everything that you have the ability to be? Then your work is done, right? So.
Which is almost a never-ending process, because you can always improve and grow. And
always.
I don't know if something's going to come up for you with this question or not, but I think I can remember the general time for me. But do you remember when the little girl in the corner that was kind of afraid became the young professional that knew she was going to become an executive?
I don't know. But now I'm curious to hear when you knew that you would be on your path.
The specific one I'm on now was probably about a year and a half into my doctoral program when I stopped being concerned what people thought about me, like this whole critic thing. I used to get so nitpicky about someone's comment on YouTube or someone's feedback about, oh, you're a coach, blah, 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 about coaches. And I remember there was this switch. I think I was like deep into academic papers on job satisfaction and motivation, where I just fully accepted and like who I was and my talents and my expertise and the path that I was on. The first moment though was when I was working in healthcare and completely resentful of my job and of my leaders. And I was walking into work one day after just like years of just being like sad and complaining about the situation I was in, and just walking into work. I remember looking at the people around me and realizing that they all seemed as burdened and as stressed and as unhappy as I felt. And I was like, wow, someone held up a mirror. And that's when I realized that I was the one responsible and that I wanted to change that. And I wanted to change that for other people. And that's kind of when I changed my career path from healthcare to talent development and career development. And there's like little moments like this in my life where I've just like gained more confidence and gained more direction and gained more purpose. And I tell people, and they're like, Ben, what are you going to do for a living? And I'm like, well, I'm doing everything I love right now, but I can't tell you when I'm going to get another one of those moments. But I'm pretty happy right now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I think that from a little bit of that discomfort, right, again, becomes that growth that like, I don't like what people are saying, or I'm like bought into it, but then there's this other glimmer right inside of you of like what you could be and what opportunity is. And I think it makes you stronger and better at what you're doing, right? Coaching other people to be able to find that and to be able to turn that into a path. I'll tell you that maybe, I think, I'll tell you for sure. So when I was at my first job, then my second job, then my next job, I'd had different opportunities that were presented where maybe somebody I worked for, somebody came in and said, you could do that job. And I said, no, I couldn't do it. He's got a master's degree. That guy's really smart. She knows what she's doing. I don't have that. And they said, yes, but, and one day my boss said to me, who had his master's degree, and I said, maybe I should go get a master's degree. I just had a baby. Like I have plenty of time for a master's degree and a full-time job and a baby, right? And I said, maybe that's what I should do. And he said, no, you're knowledgeable and you have knowledge that most people don't have in this, and you should leverage that. And I think that I went to it because I didn't have that. You already have that. You don't need this. And I said, oh, okay. But I saw a lot more zeros maybe behind that decision to get a master's degree. And I felt like maybe he wasn't right. But hearing it from somebody who you admire makes you realize that maybe you don't need that. Maybe you are okay. Maybe you are good enough. And then I heard it another time about this person did something and somebody said, well, you could do that job. And I said, I can't do that job. And they said, you could do that job. And then the next job, I was offered that job. And when I took the job and I did it and I tried it on, I realized it fit. Like I know it. I know enough to be dangerous. And you know what? Here's what I know. There is nobody, I'm not always the smartest person in the room. I'm not always the most experienced, but there's nobody who wants it more than me. When I'm in that room, when I'm at that board table, when I'm at a decision-making point for a company, when I'm entrusted, there's nobody who wants it more. There's nobody who will work harder. There's nobody who will do it as ethically or as fully or as passionately as I will. And to me, that's worth something. So to that little girl in the corner who wasn't so sure and who was quiet and who wasn't so knowledgeable and didn't feel like she got all of the subjects in her head like she should, I was looking at my English degree and thought, like, what am I doing with this, right? What am I doing? And somebody said, you're going to be a teacher, right? And I was like, I'm not going to be a teacher. So I had to forge another path. And I remember at some point in my career, after being told that by that one guy, and after somebody else had said something to me, and I'd seen and given been an opportunity, I came across, I think it was a quote from Richard Branson about when somebody offers you a seat on a rocket ship, you take it, right? So I thought, I'm going to just hop on. Like, what's the worst that can happen here? And I'll tell you a funny story. My grandmother worked at the UN. She was from Hungary. She worked at the UN before I was born. And she had a friend who worked the switchboard there. And the woman also didn't really speak so much English, and then eventually learned English. And being on the switchboard, she was talking to a lot of people, and she sharpened her skills. And then she became a secretary. And from a secretary, she became the office manager. From the office manager, she was running an organization, like a part of the organization that she was entrusted. And she became like a chief of staff type of, like, head of HR. And it was a pretty big deal. And she really just started out on the switchboard. And there's so many stories of, like, you know, the guy who's, I think, is it run Pepsi, and he was the janitor, or like there were some different companies, right? And I thought it's so interesting because it really just takes this idea that you can, and for somebody to believe in you when you don't believe in yourself, which is, again, I think it kind of goes back to the work that you do. Sometimes you have to hear it from somebody who can kind of coach you to see yourself differently. And I think that that's invaluable, right? Sometimes you don't see it. I still see her in the corner, and I know that she wasn't powerful then. She had it inside her, but she didn't know it, right? Sometimes people have to tell you that. Sometimes people have to hold up a mirror, and then you see it, right? It isn't that I lacked confidence. I think most people would say I had all of that. But it was an experience that I had. And now I have enough experience where I can walk in and be like, look, here's what I know, and here's what I don't know, right? You're paying me for what I know, but you're going to pay me to solve what I don't know. And so you hired me for this, but really what I'm going to get paid for, right, when we're successful, is what I don't know. And I think that, you know, again, that develops over time.
It's so powerful to have someone kind of say that and believe in you enough to be like, you should go do this now. You need to do this now. And also the fact that you had all the talent that you needed. You just needed to try it on. You just need to kind of like show up in the clothes that you had inside you and confront the kind of the fear and step into the opportunity.
For sure. Yeah, I think that that's it, right? You don't even know that it exists, so you don't go to try it on, right? You don't even think about it. And so when somebody's like, have you seen this? You're like, I could try that. I tried everything else.
You can try on anything you want.
Yeah.
And see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think we don't know that. People don't tell you that. Like, you're told that as a kid, right? You can be anything you want to be, right? You're like, I don't know. Can I really be? I don't know. And then when you see somebody else do it, I think that that's also powerful. I think it's important to surround yourself with people who have been successful, even if it's through books, even if it's through, you know, going to and listening to conferences, podcasts. I think it's inspiring. And I think you're like, it really isn't, I'm not athletic. I wasn't athletic. I am now. But by nature, deep down, I'm also not athletic. And when I met my husband, we had a boat and he had a boat, and we went out wakeboarding, and his sister, who was in reasonably good shape, and really not all that sporty either, got up and she started wakeboarding, and she did all these things. And he tried to pick me up on the boat a few times and pull me, and I was like dead weight, and I wasn't good at it. And I saw her do it, and I was like, she can do it. I can do it, right? And so I was determined now, right? If she can do it, I can do it. She's not all that athletic, and she tried it, and she believed she could, and he got her up, and look, she's doing great. And so now I'm better. I'm kidding. I've just been doing it a lot longer now. I'm not necessarily better, but like, you know, I didn't even think I could. And I was like, oh, she can do it. When I saw my husband do it, of course he can do it. He's always been an athlete. When I've seen his friends do it, of course they could do it. They've done it for years. It's easy to dismiss that somebody else is doing something that you would like to try, but you're not capable of doing. You can convince yourself pretty easily, right? Until you see somebody do it. And it's so important. Like when you talked about like, what did I do today that was exciting? You know, social media. It was that like influencers, those people who are like out doing the thing that you're trying to show everybody else is so great to do. We become social creatures, and being able and visual, being able to see that somebody else is doing something convinces you that you can. I think it's just very powerful.
So if people want to watch you doing it and watch your rocket ship, where can they find out more information about you?
LinkedIn is the best place. I don't spend a ton of time on there, but I try to kind of put out honestly what I think will inspire others and let people know a little glimpses of my journey that I think can help others, things that I wish existed when I was kind of coming up. And also that's where I like to go to sponge information and learn from other people too. So that's the best place is LinkedIn. I think I'm Dawn Weiss on LinkedIn. There might be a couple of them, but I'm on there.
We'll put the link in the show notes. And I appreciate you, being the expert that people can be the sponge around for this episode, and a lot of little nuggets. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Executive Podcast, where we explore what it truly means to be a leader. If you've taken one thing away, make sure to subscribe, share, and most importantly, leave a review. Thanks again, everyone, and see you next time.